Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
Life is a fight.
Right.
In business, every day is a fight.
Uh-huh.
So, hey, what's your problem?
Yeah, as always, thank you, Mr. John David Wells, for being the illustrious voice guy, the incomparable voice guy for this program. Check him out at the Wells Report on Facebook. He is streaming once again his radio broadcast. This is a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. And the one thing, because it's always something that keeps them, it's like nudging us, right?
There's more than just one.
More than just one, sometimes. It's always something. That's how it's all based off. I actually saw the man who created or gave me the inspiration for this podcast, Mr. Greg Miles, had a little sit down with him last week and caught up. It was kind of nice. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. And I am your host, Jim McCarthy with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com. Today, we got another returning guest. Look, if you're a returning guest on this podcast, it means we had a great conversation and we need to continue it. He is a California refugee, political refugee, let's say. If you've not been awake these past few years, we'll be getting a lot of people that are moving in from California to Middle Tennessee because they're kind of like bittersweet having to leave their home state.
Was that a pun intended for the fact that they just banned the candy? What are the little bears?
Gummy bears?
No, not the gummy bears. The sour. They're sweet, but they're sour. Oh, what? It's Sour Patch Kids.
Oh, really? They banned them?
They banned Sour Patch Kids.
Why? Because it's California. We'll just chalk it up to that.
Yeah.
So before we get into it, we kind of get the juices flowing and energy moving in the positive direction and have a little fun. It's called the Dad Joke Challenge, and we both know the gentleman who heads this up, sponsors it, Ed Fox from Trade Bank. He is a fellow B&Ier, and I forgot to say who you are, which is a faux pas on my part. So Mr. A.J. Russell with Matson Alarms of Tennessee. Is it alarms or alarms?
Alarm.
Alarm. So singular alarm.
Singular. Yep.
Mr. A.J. Russell is going to be our guest today. We're going to have a great conversation. I can just feel it, but we're going to get into it with the Dad Joke Challenge. Once again, brought to you by Ed Fox and Trade Bank of Middle Tennessee. A.J., you're familiar with Trade Bank. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
About Trade Bank?
Yeah. How does it work?
Well, Mr. Ed Fox is how it works, right? Let's all be real here. But it's actually, it's barter. Barter is smarter, right?
That's right.
So you can trade, instead of trading actual cash, we can trade goods and services as business owners from one to another, right?
Another network.
And create even a bigger network.
It's like a separate economy.
That's
alternative economy, if you will.
Great way to put it.
Yeah. So if you have like unsold inventory and goods and stuff like that, and you want to get rid of them, you still need to move it. Cash is good, but cash flow is better. That includes barter. Got to keep things moving, man.
Barter is smarter.
That's right. So check it out. Trade Bank, nashville.tradebank.com. All the details are in the description. And off we go. Hopefully this works. Joke number one. He is also the king of dad jokes, if you haven't known.
Where are average things manufactured? The satisfactory.
Yeah, Yeah, not bad. Okay.
There's a chuckle there.
There's a little bit. We kind of saw that one coming. Number two.
I can count on one hand how many times I've been to Chernobyl. It's 14. There's...
All right.
Because he's got 14 fingers. That's why. Yeah. Number three.
There's this gun runner I know. Everyone calls him T-Rex. He's a small arms dealer. My wife...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not bad.
Yeah,
Not bad.
I'm
the Chernobyl one is. I'm going to have to tell that one later for sure.
Yeah, that was good.
My wife thinks I've got a problem because I drink brake fluid. I said, it's not a problem. I can stop any time.
And there's the spirit right there, man. One of them's going to get you.
We hear him every Wednesday morning.
I know.
And he gets us just about every week.
He really does. Okay, so last one, I promise. Here we go.
Helvetica and Times New Roman walk into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve your type in here."
I honestly have not heard that one.
That was pretty good.
That one was pretty good. Well, there you go. The Dad Joke Challenge, a fun little feature that we put at the beginning of every episode just to get the energy flowing. But into all things AJ as we kind of pot the music down here. And you can leave the headphones on or you want to take them off.
They've got to come off.
Take them off, man. That's fine. I get it.
There is some PTSD there that scars run very deep.
Is that from racing, do you think?
Yeah, so no, I can tell you exactly when it happened. I was probably about 13 years old, and we were racing in Paso Robles. They had turned the rodeo grounds into a dirt racetrack, and I had won, right? And we went to do an after race interview when I got out of the car, which is pretty typical. And so I'd gotten out of the car and I started to talk to the announcer, but my voice was delayed by like 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And I didn't. When I started talking, it hit me, and I almost got like vertigo.
Yeah.
And I couldn't catch up with my words, and I was speaking really slowly and just waiting for the words to come back. And ever since that day, now when I hear my own voice, it just triggers that moment. I just can't do this.
I think I told you this story too, but I'll share it here. I had to do a remote. We did what we call the Dracula blood drive in Brookfield, Connecticut. And I lived in a fabricated pumpkin for 4 days. Had all my necessary, ways to do things and live life for 4 days up on a giant scissor lift. Bathroom and everything, a porta potty, all that stuff. But the broadcast, because I did nights, had that same effect because you were pinging to the station, and then I was listening to the broadcast feed in my ears. So you really had to make sure that you were kind of calibrated that way and understand. And eventually I just kind of trained my brain just to ignore it. Man, it was crazy.
I don't know. I mean, that like people that can, because the announcer that was on the other side that was interviewing me, he was spot on, right? Yeah. It didn't bother him one little bit. And so I'd assume if you used it and got used to it, but I think when you have that first bad experience,
it just stays with you.
Yeah.
I get that.
I mean, especially when you're 12 years old and you're standing in front of like 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And
you're having to do an interview.
And you can't make a sentence out, right? It kind of traumatizes you.
It's tough to have the gift of gab, let alone at age 12.
And that's where I think for me, I grew up because I grew up racing cars. And so at that time, there wasn't a lot of kids that were involved in racing.
Right.
And so I grew up in a very adult world, having adult conversations, getting interviewed at a young age. I think I was 15 when the first time that the local paper came and did an article on me. Right. And so, because of that experience, it introduced me to these things at a very young age. And, as you've been around BNI for the last couple of weeks, I've been taking my nephew to BNI and I've been making him talk. And we've actually been coaching at night on it. I'm working on his speeches with him every night because I feel like, there's one thing in this world, and that's being able to communicate with big groups of people. And it's inherently tough for a lot of people.
It is.
Right. And so I think when you get exposed to it at a very young age, it helps in that early adulthood, right, when you get put in that situation.
And BNI also helps. For those of you've heard me talk about BNI on the podcast before. It's we meet every week. There's about 60 of us that get in the same room. We've got about maybe on average 20 to 25 guests that show up. So everybody has an allotted amount of time to tell about their business, who they're looking for, things of that nature. And then we have 2 slots available for the members to do 8-minute presentations where it is an exercise in how to, it's almost like Toastmasters in a way.
A little bit, because like even for me, right? Like I wasn't uncomfortable speaking in front of the group, but what I found that it took me a minute to really get a hold of in BNI was the time limit, right? We only get like 30 seconds, right? So trying to come up with a message that you can say in 30 seconds that's impactful to 60 other people that are also trying to tell a story that's impactful, that has been probably the biggest growth through BNI, is learning how to make those seconds count.
Oh yeah. It's making, it's radio 101. I had to write 30-second spots all the time. Sometimes you write 1 or 2 of them, maybe 3 that would kind of rotate. Whenever their time came up on the radio station, it would, play one. Then the next time around, it would play the next one, then the next one. But, you had to be a very good wordsmithing talent.
But see, what's funny is sometimes you'll work on it.
Yeah.
And you'll think, this one's going to be great, right? I've got a great 30-second commercial for tomorrow, and you hit it, and like no reaction, nothing, right?
I feel like I'm awful at it.
And then you take one, right, that you just like, you're like, this is going to be this is going to fall flat on its face. And that's what hits.
Yeah. Because everybody does try to be a little bit of a comedian, make people laugh. I mean, it's not really the impetus to make sure you get your messaging right. It's getting there and it being like a billboard. Because if you're not there and you don't have a sub speaking for you, it's like your billboard came down. Nobody hears you. Nobody hears your name. Nobody sees you present. It's the one-to-ones and the before and after open networking that really do matter. But of course, refining the message so it is a tip of the spear message. For you, it's the alarms, right? But that's a tip of the spear because you do a lot more things. You do speakers, you do cameras, things of that nature. For me, it's podcasting. Getting out there and saying, I'm the podcast guy. If you know anybody that's looking for a podcast, and that's almost like bad language for BNI, saying if you know anyone, they want you to be more specific, which I get. But, hey, if somebody's saying, I would love to do a podcast, I just don't know what I would talk about. Well, okay, that's a great person for me to be having a warm introduction provided, because I could take an hour with this person. I'll find something for them to talk about. It's not that hard. So it's basically the tip of the spear. That's a lot of people really, especially in the beginning, they don't really get that. They have to kind of figure that out over time,
And it's a group setting thing, right? Like, because like you mentioned, our beginning networking plus our one-to-ones and the power groups and those kind of things, it's a completely different vibe than the whole group all at once, right? So your messaging is completely different, right? So if I talk about an alarm system and I want to talk about a door contact sensor, right? Well, how exciting is that? Yeah. Right? It's not, right? But when you start talking about maybe some of the fire statistics and some of the burglar statistics, right? That in a group setting is very interesting, where, it can be interesting on a one-on-one, but there's a lot more you can get across in the one-on-one and deal with the actual nitpicky details of what we do for a living.
It's funny because even my latest season of asks has been just like and share the podcast, the What's Your Problem podcast. And it's funny how I'm like, it's a layup referral. Part of the responsibility on each member is to make your request as easy as possible. The easier you make it for somebody else to give you a referral, the better off you're going to do. And a lot of people get frustrated with that because, well, I'm here, you should just give me referrals. No, that's not the way it works. You have to, how do I make it easy for me? I'm thinking of, in typical BNI chapters, you're looking at 20 to 30 people in a chapter. You mean to tell me that I have to constantly be looking out for you? No, you have to plant something in my head that triggers the response. And it's got to be easy because you're listening to 30, on average, 30 requests, plus your guests, who have requests, to trigger that, that impetus to get the referral going. So and it's got to be made easy for the recipient.
And this is exactly what I mean. And then this is where I think that BNI is just great, is because it teaches you to start honing those skills.
Yeah.
right? And teaches you where, to really start putting your message and how to get people to really let that message sink in.
Oh yeah, totally. And the better you get at it, it's I tell people that want to sit down with me, sometimes they'll ask, well, how do I make my messaging better? Well, what do you believe about what you do? It's a big question I ask in person, on podcasts. And it's you have to ponder that. You really have to think, what do I believe about what I do? Even asking myself about podcasting, I believe everyone's got a podcast in them. That's what I believe about what I do. And it's advantageous to me, of course, because I produce them. But, I truly believe it. It's one of the best ways to market yourself and your business. It's a marketing machine. And that's probably the best way I can explain it. But like I've been saying, well, in order to, you guys, I'm fairly confident that they know I do voiceover and podcasts and audio production. Podcasts have the most salient reach because there's so many people out there that are doing them. There's so many people that are listening to them. There's so many, you just never know. But the easiest way for people to kind of get more and more familiar with podcasting is just share mine out.
And that's a
layup referral, man.
And what's interesting though about podcasting, right? It's like nowadays you can have a podcast about anything. You can have underwater basket weaving instructions right, on a podcast,
totally.
Right? And you know what? There's probably a whole bunch of people that are going to listen to that.
And a lot, if you wanted to get a podcast, you'd be like, Jim, am I going to talk about alarm systems and everything? And I go, if you're training people to learn about, maybe they're in the industry and you want to become a thought leader, influencer in the industry to people who are in the industry, then sure, train on the latest developments in camera technology and in alarms and things like that. But if you're thinking about, I want to gain customers, it's like having an insurance podcast. Nobody's going to listen to that. So what are the best interests? You could have a racing podcast and talk about stuff like that. Because I know you can talk about it.
I can talk about racing forever.
AJ's Racing Podcast, powered by Matson Alarm. Boom.
Yeah.
That's all you do.
When you grow up, I've done it since I was 7 years old. And I think that kind of leads into what you're talking about, is when you're passionate about something, and this was something that drove me, from an early age, and I think it was because of the racing, right, is learning to really enjoy what you do. When it comes to your daily job, like I absolutely love the industry I'm in, right? A lot of times I read articles, I try to stay up on what's coming, right? Because not just because I'm trying to better myself, because I genuinely am interested in what's happening.
Right. And that's something that it's your everyday. That's what you do. That's what you get up and keeps moving you forward. But getting back to the initial topic, and we talked about this on the last time you were on, it was actually Christmas time of 2021 that you were on last. I do remember that.
Has it been that long?
It's been that long, my friend.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It is. I don't know if you could say I had fun in that time, but, nevertheless, it was still life went on, and we still made the best of it. So, moving here from California, and the biggest thing that perplexes me, and you and I have talked about this, getting in front of all the people, because your company is well known in Fresno, right?
That's
and
right.
Beyond.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people moving from Fresno that would be familiar. Oh, I know Matson Alarm.
Because it does happen, right? I just had a good friend of mine. He texted me last week and said, "Hey, I just met a couple from Clovis," right? Because Clovis is a suburb of Fresno, and he said, "Oh, they absolutely know who Matson Alarm is."
Yeah.
So that I think we talked about this before. Like that was one of the things that maybe I was immune to or kind of just used to it, that I didn't realize the market equity that we were losing when we came to Middle Tennessee.
But you're a lot of the people are moving here. So you still have that market equity.
It's coming, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot. California is a big state, right? And so, obviously your LAs and San Franciscos, right? Those are your big movers.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the communities from those areas are moving out. Not so much Fresno.
When I left, right, we were seeing a little bit of a migration from the North and the South from the LA and the San Francisco market, right? Because Fresno is somewhat of an affordable market when it comes to like house pricing, that kind of stuff.
Because they're more inland.
Yeah,
right?
is and centralized, right? It's not. I used to have a saying for this, right? Like, a market like that's LA or San Francisco or Las Vegas or New York or Chicago, right? That's not the same market as Winchester, Tennessee.
Right.
Right. And so along with those big cities and big things come along with high pricing, right?
Yeah.
Your housing starts to go up because housing is more desirable in those areas. And so what we were seeing a lot of people starting to leave the LA, San Francisco market and move into the Fresno market because it was a more affordable place to live in California. And I think some of us, I think there's some of that going, right? The people that don't necessarily want to leave California but feel like they've been priced out of the market move to a more affordable market. And I feel like some of those people move to Texas or Tennessee or
Idaho. That's
Idaho,
a big one. Yeah.
Right? That's a big one. And so we were starting to see a little bit of an influx of those people. We've always kind of seen it in a little bit of a lower trickle, but like the people that bought my house, they were from the LA market.
Oh, really?
And so, which then, because you had the influence of that culture that's in the LA market and the San Francisco market, it really starts to kind of change the culture of the market that we had.
Right. How long did that go on, the LA and San Francisco moving into Fresno? When did it begin, or when did you feel it begin?
I could say that it's always kind of been a little bit of a thing. Like one of my friends growing up, his dad worked in the San Francisco market, right? But he would, Monday morning, he would drive to San Francisco. He had a very small apartment there where he stayed through the week and then drove back on Friday.
Right.
But his family and his house was in Fresno. And that was just because it was more cost effective to live in Fresno. So I've always seen a little bit of it. But I would say COVID, just like anything else, was what kind of accelerated it.
Massive catalyst.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what compelled you to get out of the state completely.
Yeah. And like I said, it wasn't, my wife and I, we were just looking for a retirement property. We weren't planning on leaving the state just quite yet.
Right.
We knew, we had talked about it, that we'd never be able to retire in California. We knew that, like, that was not up for debate. And so what we were actually, because of COVID, we had saved some money, and, we weren't going out to eat. We weren't going to the movies. We weren't going to live venues, right? So, all that money that you traditionally would have spent, we actually saw it as a savings, right?
Right.
And so that was what sparked the conversation to, hey, let's go buy a retirement piece of property at 2020 pricing, right? And then 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when we actually do go to retire, we've got this piece of property that we bought 20 years ago at 20 years ago pricing, and now we can build our forever home. And Tennessee was one of the areas that we were thinking, so we came out here to visit. Mm-hmm. We came to visit. And
it was last on your list, remember?
It was last on our list, right? And it was as I was doing research, right? The bars were open, the restaurants were open, businesses were doing business. It was just a completely different scenario of California, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we got here and we started experiencing that, that's what sparked it to be like, what are we waiting? Why are we waiting to retire? Why are we going to waste our time? Let's just do it now.
And you landed in the Goose Creek area?
Yeah.
Berry Farms?
Yep, Berry Farms.
Right.
Yep. Soon to be the new location for
In-N-Out Burger.
In-N-Out Burger.
Oh, my goodness. You couldn't have picked a better place. You'd be able to walk to it.
Probably not for the next 6 months or 6 months after it opens. I'm assuming there's going to be a line all the way down the 65 to Nashville.
It's crazy that a burger place can command that kind of an attention. It's like, Chick-fil-A. It's got how can you beat a business plan like that? Line around the building for lunch
all day, not just for lunch.
Not just for lunch anymore.
It's that's the way Chick-fil-A is almost all the time, except Sundays. For some reason, on Sundays they're just completely dead.
They're completely closed on Sundays. Yeah, it's the Lord's Day, and they honor that. With In-N-Out Burger, though, that's an interesting addition to Middle Tennessee. Even they're getting tired of it.
Well, and that's what you got to, when
It's California, that is.
That was kind of my running joke for a little bit was, when the California hamburger, right? Because when you think of California and you think of their hamburgers, most people think In-N-Out, right?
Yeah.
And when the California hamburger can't stand to
California.
still be in California anymore, that's.
I got a taste of them when we lived in Vegas, and I was like, okay, it's a burger place. I don't get it. I'm okay with it. It's not like I'm saying it's not for me, but I'm like, Culver's, I think, makes a better burger. I mean, blasphemy. And they got the concretes and the good shakes and stuff.
I think it has something to do with the simplicity of their menu.
Right.
Right. I mean, because when you really look at the In-N-Out menu, they've got burgers, shakes, and fries.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, you can get a grilled cheese, I guess, if you want.
But you got to know the secret menu if you're an insider.
Yeah,
because they do have that.
Even your secret menu on In-N-Out isn't that expansive, right? You've got animal style, and then you can just times your patty by however many you want, right? So if you want 100 patty burger, you can get that.
Well, I mean, I think you can give every Middle Tennessean who's been native here quite the extensive education on the secret menu for In-N-Out.
So the big one, I mean, again, the In-N-Out's menu is so simple. There really isn't much to it, but animal style, I've been eating that since I was.
What is animal style? What does that mean?
Animal style is they do grilled onions,
right?
And it's I don't know if they do something with the cheese, but or if they happen to put the grilled onions on top of the cheese, so like the grilled onions kind of infuse themselves into the cheese. And then they have I believe it's a special spread, I think, that they also utilize.
So do you become an animal to eat it? You just get, ferocious? It's like, I'm wondering if Waffle House adopted, because they call it slathered, smothered, and something or other, or what do they call it? It's like a thing in Waffle House that they describe. How do you want it? Slapped, cracked, and splattered. And I'm totally ruining it. I have no idea what I'm.
See, we didn't have a Waffle House in California, so
that's why I'm wondering if it's their version of what In-N-Out does.
But I
style.
did hear a super interesting fact about Waffle House. Apparently, the government utilizes Waffle Houses to determine how bad a natural disaster is.
Really?
It was something I was reading. So apparently, Waffle House has this whole thing of like. Depending on like if they don't have power, right? They only send like so many employees in. If there's no water, right? They only send in so many employees, and it's based on the conditions in which how a Waffle House operates. And apparently the government looks at the Waffle House and sees at what level they're operating, and that's how they determine.
Really?
Apparently, it could be an old wives' tale, but
no, that's a thing.
So I think that basically the Waffle House rule, and this is from an article in 2011, scattered, smothered, and covered.
Does that also have to do with natural disasters?
No. It's just you can order your food like akin to In-N-Out Burger, where you can order your food animal style. You can order food from Waffle House scattered, smothered, and covered. And I'm not exactly sure what that means. And I guess you can consider myself to be a native of Nashville now, because I've been here for 17 years. I don't know what the time commitment is here.
Didn't they have Waffle Houses up north?
No. We used to get Waffle House, and we thought it was such an indulgence when we went to Florida. So we'd see them down there. Ooh, let's go get a waffle. Must be good because it's Waffle House, And then you realize it's just, late night drunk people food. It's basically the South's equivalent of a diner that we have.
Yeah, but have you ever seen the way that Waffle House operates? Their operations are pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, they're completely buttoned up.
The way that they turn like creamer upside down indicates something, and the way that they
really.
Oh yeah.
I did not know that, but
yeah,
I mean,
on the kitchen window, like they'll take creamer, right, and they flip that upside down, and that's like eggs over easy or something.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Did you know that, Keegan? We got Keegan that's off to the side here. He's listening.
Yeah.
He's playing producer of the show today. No, I had no idea.
Yeah.
But that's what that meant.
So when you talk about Waffle House, somehow we went from In-N-Out to Waffle House, but
I mean that's kind of like the southern equivalent of In-N-Out in a way, just breakfast.
But when you look at everybody makes fun of Waffle House, right? It's the 3 o'clock. I'm drunk. I'm hungover.
It's
whatever. I need something. Yeah. But when when the government's looking at them in how to assess their natural disasters, and then you look at the way that they actually operate, right? They operate very efficiently.
They're a lot smarter than the average bear.
That's right.
Yeah. So we just took a trip up to Pennsylvania for kind of a family gathering, and I had to run up to Scranton to do some shooting on a car wash we just finished for lighting up there. While we were there, I met an old friend of mine, and I said, hey, let's grab dinner and everything. Actually, I didn't see her since high school. So my wife and her husband and we all go out to this diner. And I said, is this like a diner that I knew growing up in Connecticut? Like Three Brothers Diner was the hang when I was growing up. And a friend of mine back in the day basically introduced me to a meal that I now coined the heart attack on a plate. And it was... poutine, essentially. What is poutine? But back in the day, I called it, French fries with gravy and cheese.
That's a Canadian thing,
I guess. But I mean, it was delicious. So at 12:30 at night, 18, 19 years old, when your system and your metabolism can churn through that stuff at exponential rates, I would have that with a chocolate milkshake. 12:30, 1 a.m. And my gosh, what a meal. So I had to indulge in that at least when I went up there. It was just like I remembered. It was so good. Gosh darn. And I clearly don't need it these days. But, every now and then, it's not going to hurt.
The first time I had poutine was actually in Canada.
Really?
I didn't even know what it was, to be honest.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is awesome.
It's unbelievable. It is utterly heavenly. And it's the worst thing you could possibly ever eat.
I'm glad I wasn't introduced to it earlier because I would,
be 400 pounds.
Yeah.
That's why you eat it when you're 18. So in the next life, just remember that. But I mean, that's what, Waffle House is kind of like the southern version of the northern diner or even, In-N-Out Burger. Well, In-N-Out Burger isn't open 24 hours, right?
No.
Yeah.
But it is open till midnight or 1 a.m.
Yeah.
I mean, they are open late.
It'll be interesting to see, I guess, though, because it's a big chain, a regional chain, how well they do here in Nashville. Because you got so many people, like the Northeast has got so many characteristics of food and different types of things like, New York pizza. Tough to find anywhere else but New York. And you don't know that until you go have it. My kids even, we found the closest thing to New York pizza down here, which is Joey's House of Pizza, which is closed. They're actually opening up. I want to try and get those guys on. I always talk, I'm huge champions of you guys to get Crescenza and Joey out here on the podcast. But they opened up an event space in Murfreesboro that caters, the catering is from Joey's House of Pizza. He just got tired, I think, of running a restaurant. He's like, I'm just done. He's probably in his late 50s, 60s, somewhere in there. Let's just enjoy life. And they're still doing their thing. But now his daughter and her husband run Nellie's out here in Spring Hill, which is a real, hair-thin close second to Joey's House of Pizza. And that, in the time that we've been away from the Northeast, Vegas didn't afford too much in terms of New York style pizza that we were used to until the last 2 years we were there. We found a place that was pretty close, but not the real deal. And getting out here, sure enough, it just, we were thinking there's no way, but it turns out there's a lot of New Yorkers down here.
What do you think In-N-Out's market equity is going to be in Middle Tennessee, right? Because that's what we were just talking about, right? Like people in Fresno may still know who Matson Alarm is, right? But it seems as though everybody in Middle Tennessee definitely knows who In-N-Out is.
Yeah. In terms of what's going to be their slice amongst other fast food restaurants.
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty impressive right off the bat.
Well, I think any place like that, right? And especially if you know anything about In-N-Out, right? So one of the reasons why In-N-Out has never expanded is it has to do with the freshness of their food.
Yeah.
And apparently getting it to the Midwest or to the South, there was no feasible way to maintain that freshness and get the food that far in a time frame. So I would be really interested to figure out how they figured that out, because I know that's what's held them back for a long time.
I just figured they were happy with the regional, draw that they had.
No, it has to do with something with the freshness of the food, of the patties, of the lettuce, of the tomatoes, that kind of thing. And
not so much with the potatoes for the fries, because those can be transported.
Yeah, I would assume, right?
Because that's what McDonald's big draw.
I would assume your big things, right? If you're not going to freeze a patty, right? Your beef is probably your big one. And then your lettuce has got to go old fairly quickly.
That's the thing California has over the rest of the country is produce. Talk about vibrant colors and quality. Everything I've seen out there has just been fantastic.
We, because we grew, Selma, California is right outside of Fresno.
Yeah.
And I want to say they produce 92% of the world's raisins.
Really?
Yeah.
California raisin.
Yep. It's a real thing.
It is a real thing. That was a whole big ad campaign in the 80s.
We lost the singing dancing raisins. Well, I don't know what happened to them.
It's just a fad. It was a kind of they wanted to have, somewhat of a mascot, I guess, to endorse the, gosh, why can't I think of words? Product. A commodity. That's what I meant. Yeah.
But you would think, because with all things, because even the Goid, right? Isn't it the Goid from Domino's?
The Noid.
The Noid.
Yeah.
I
remember the Noid.
They've already brought him back, so you would think
maybe
California singing raisins have got to be around the corner.
It might be something. We talked about it on another podcast, not the California raisin, but somewhat of a commodity when it came to something that I could just completely. I'm batting 1,000 here with my train of thought. So on we go. It popped into my head and popped right back out. Gotta love it when that happens. That's why you write things down as you pop in your head. California raisins. You had the Where's the Beef Lady in the 80s. 80s type of advertising tricks that they did. Oh, that's what I was going to say. We talked about this on the Ales and Tales podcast. Check them out. Ales and Tales podcast, thealesandtalespodcast.com. Another podcast where I lose train of thought and make stupid comments. But if you like beer drinking, it's the one to listen to. But we talked about refreshing drinks. And you remember the Got Milk campaign from the 80s and 90s? And they show all these people that were doing strenuous exercise and running track and doing all this other stuff. And when I'm done running track and playing football and rollerblading and playing hockey, I screw water. I drink milk. It's like the least refreshing beverage you could possibly think of.
Well, think of the Indianapolis 500, right? The Indianapolis 500 is presented with a gallon of milk of their choice.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
Was that part of the Got Milk campaign?
It's been a part of that tradition forever.
Really?
Right.
I know whether they drink the milk after they sweated inside after 500 miles of driving.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. And so for me, right, I could only imagine sitting in that shoes of winning the Indy 500. At that point, you could do whatever and I wouldn't care. But
right.
So they'll usually take it a gigantic, drink of it, and then they'll dump the rest over the top of their head.
Oh,
right. And we're talking Indianapolis in May, right?
Yeah.
So that suit and everything else is
just a roux. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stuff just marinating in there. Let's add milk to it. Oh. Yeah, hopefully it's chilled milk.
Yeah, it is cold. It is cold.
So again, getting back to it, you mentioned the different markets coming into Fresno and different types of people that, gravitate towards what you do. But it's like, I think that you would just hit it out of the park if you just went to some of these Spring Hill pages with all the California pages. There's like, at least 22 of them on Facebook, moving from California to Tennessee, and just, how much to buy the banner space. And put my thing up there.
you and I are part of a lot of those groups, and and I watch a lot of that, and it, to me, it doesn't seem like it's slowing down.
No, and there's a lot of people moving in, but I think for you, take advantage of that market equity, especially if they're moving in from Fresno. There's a good chance they might know who you are.
That's true.
There's a really good chance.
And California has a different approach on alarm systems than Middle Tennesseans, right? So
is it really that different? But they're still Californians.
It is. It's a lot different, right? So like in California, right, when you buy your new house or buy your first house or whatever it is, that alarm system checkbox is right in between turn the power on and get the water changed in your name.
Oh.
Right? It is one of those checkboxes that you just, everybody's got an alarm.
So it's a first level urgent issue.
Yeah.
Is it because of the crime that was in California kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I would attribute it to that. Right. And so, that's what's funny here, right, is, we do an alarm system in California, and the number one piece was the burg piece, right? The burglar alarm side of it. And we would mention, the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide that we can monitor, and customers in California would be like, well, yeah, it's a part of my alarm system, so fine, I'll get one.
Right.
Here in Middle Tennessee, you can almost flip it around, right? You can talk about the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide and the life safety facts of an alarm system, and they look at the burg side and they're like, well, if it comes with the life safety piece, might as well, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting it anyways.
Okay, so your tip of the spear's just changed. It's just a matter of...
you're talking two different sides of the country, right? So one side of the country is worried about their actual physical security, right?
Burglaries.
Right? Then you got the other side of the country that's like, well, I got a big dog and a shotgun.
I'm stocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm low. Okay, that makes sense.
But
I know a lot of Californians are moving out here for that very reason. Well, I can just protect myself.
But I can't protect my family and my house against a fire. Right. My shotgun and my dog isn't going to help me in the event of a fire.
Right.
So they they value the life safety portion more than they do the burg side.
Yeah, but even just in the case and for the sake of starting conversations and creating awareness, I think it's something you need to look into. If you already have the market equity, do it. You got a leg up, massive.
Yeah, and but again, it's not like and that I get it.
Yeah,
because we all live here. We love this Middle Tennessee place, and we think of it as a little bubble, and nothing ever goes wrong here, right? Nobody ever gets broken into.
No, there's never a what if, where there's always something here.
But it does happen, right?
Does.
There are burglaries that happen every single day here in Middle Tennessee. There are burglaries that happen every single day in Nashville, right? We're just
armed here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're a lot more armed in Middle Tennessee than I think that you probably were in California.
Yeah. I mean, I had guns in California and I've got guns here. Right.
But I mean, was it tougher to keep guns there, or was it much more of a process?
Well, yeah. I mean, I had a friend over, one of my friends here a few months ago, and he wanted to go see the gun store, and I saw a gun that I'd wanted for quite a while, so I was like, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at me. He's like, "You're gonna buy that right now?" I said, "Yeah." And did the thing and walked out with a gun.
Yeah.
And we drove 15 minutes down the road and went to the shooting range and shot it. And he just couldn't wrap his head around
how quickly it happened.
And that, 20 minutes later, we're shooting this gun at a range, right? Because in California, it's is it 21 days now?
I have no idea. I guess what the waiting period is. I don't know.
Yeah, and then
I've never bought a gun, not for any particular political reason, or I just never got around to it.
Yeah,
probably shouldn't put that out there, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, there was certain guns that I had wanted in California that I couldn't own.
Right.
So the minute that I moved here to Middle Tennessee, I went and bought those guns that I've always wanted to get.
Because now you can.
Because now we can. It's legal, right?
But I mean, did you, in your history in California with your family, your father, did they own guns that all of a sudden became outlawed?
Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, I would assume
instant criminality.
Yeah, I would assume so.
What do you have to do? I mean, do they go house to house? Well, do you have a gun like this? And
no, I think it's a matter of just getting, like, if you're transporting it and you get caught with it, right? And for whatever reason, they're harder on the your law-abiding citizen that is just moving his gun from his old house to his new house, right? And now is sitting in prison for 15 years because he had a gun that he wasn't supposed to.
Do you get a lot of? How do people react when you tell them you're from California and Tennessee? Because you've been here several years now. So in the beginning, I'm just wondering if there's an attitude shift because we're seeing California plates everywhere.
It's starting to. It's not. I don't think the Californians are getting prosecuted just yet in Middle Tennessee. Right. When I came here, they were, right off the bat, they were very, very welcoming.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Yeah. But I think the next election cycle, if things start turning blue, they're going to be like, okay, wait a minute.
I don't even know if it's that, because I even noticed it, right? Because I've taken on the same driving approach.
I was going to ask, how do you respond now?
As Middle Tennesseans, right? And where, we talked about this on the last podcast, right? You're coming out of the grocery store and there's a stack of cars, right? And that person's going to stop and wave at you and say, come on out. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't happen in California.
Right. Everyone hates each other.
Now I'm starting to notice little things like that where, and it's funny because you're like, that guy's not from here. That's a Californian. Right. Right. And same thing with the freeway, the way that, they dodge in and out.
It's the interstate, AJ. It's not the freeway.
Okay. What's the difference?
There's none. There is none. There is no difference. It's just called an interstate here. It's not the 65 or the 40 or the 840. It's just 840, 65. But you know that already. Yeah. That's an old habit of yours. It's just, the freeways are in California.
Sure.
And they're certainly not known as free anymore. What up? But I mean, in Northeast and where I came from, it was a highway. That's the highway, and we called it 84, take 84 to 684 down to 287, that kind of thing. So similar to, I guess, the South. But everything out here is the interstate. So
I'm trying.
Dude, I mean, you're as assimilated as anyone that I know. I love our friendship, buddy.
I think it's because I moved here to be a Tennessean. Yeah. Take the good and even with the bad, right? Yeah. Like this is the culture here. This is what people built. I moved to get away from the culture and the political climate that I was in. So, I feel like we need to embrace that culture that is already here, because there's a reason why people are moving here in droves.
Yeah. How are you? Are you guarded when you meet people from California now?
Yeah.
Like, okay. Are you kind of like a terrorist cell just going to sleep for a while, and when things become right, you're going to wake up?
Well, I think this is the part that scares me, right? Is I think there's a where Californians are moving here and they see, the big picture, and they're like, I came here to get away from this, and this, and this, right? And then, but it's the small things that they want to fight, and they forget that it was the small things
that turned
the big picture around. Yeah. And so for me, I think I'm more scared of the small things than I am the big things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that's what I saw. You're seeing? Right. So, it's the little things, right? It's yes, sir, no, ma'am.
Right.
I'm trying to think of when I saw that.
You even had a little bit of a southern twang in your voice just now.
Oh.
You had a little bit of a rubber band in your mouth. You're like, yes, sir, thank you, ma'am.
I'm trying.
You turned ma'am into 2 syllables. See, I people could tell I'm not from here. I just,
Well, you've got that north. I think that
I have
northern,
a very, middle milk toast kind of accent.
I think that's hard to get rid of.
Yeah. I every now and then I can, get the New York comes out, and, I start talking like this and everything. How you doing? Hey, we have a good time.
But you think about California. Sup, dude?
We're going to be taking the 5 to the 205, man.
Yeah.
What is it? The Californians on Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
Hilarious
It's
skit.
pretty easy to dump.
Yeah. Pretty simple.
But that you think that yes, sir, no, ma'am is such a small thing.
Well,
right?
why are you telling the ma'am no, dude? What's up with that?
Oh, yes, ma'am, no, sir? How's that?
I'm just trying to be woke. Okay.
Yeah. I don't.
You never know what will happen with this podcast, especially if I've not had sleep. So
I don't know when that went away in California.
Right.
I just kind of remember waking up one day and it's gone. Right. The fact that people don't
civility.
Yeah, they don't open the doors for anybody anymore.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they seem so trivial, right? So small. But I feel
it makes
like
a huge difference. You're right.
I feel like that's what really started changing the complexity of our culture.
When someone lets you out, waving back to them, it's very important. Sometimes I don't. My wife gets very mad at me.
Well, did we talk about this on the first one? Right, when my wife and I were visiting here, and we drive through neighborhoods because obviously we're looking for a house. Right, people would just, as you were driving by, if there's somebody walking, they would wave.
Yeah.
Right. Well, in the very beginning, my wife and I are both kind of like looking at each other like, do you know
You're
that
blown
person?
away,
Like,
right? Yeah.
why are they waving at us? And so we just started waving back. Well, after a week of waving at people and we get back to California, it was like, hey, let's wave at people and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know,
I can only imagine.
so you start waving people that are walking down the block and they, immediately head down and pick up 2 or 3 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Right. Like, why is this guy waving at me? That's weird.
Yeah. You got to love the civility of places. Now, we just discovered before recording that fireworks in L.A. or California in general are pretty much illegal.
California in general, right?
Yeah.
Like it's what do they call it? They call it safe and sane, right? So the joke that I make is you get sparklers and snakes.
Oh, that's fun.
Those are the
Yeah. It's always fun watching burning poop come out of a box. Yeah. So, but we saw almost like a revolt going on. You showed me a video and it was L.A. and the police are trying to respond to all the people who are firing off airborne fireworks.
But you saw the video,
Yeah.
right? How do the police even wrangle that in? I mean,
They can't.
the whole city, every block is lit up with airborne fireworks, which are obviously illegal.
So are you think that the Californians that are electing to stay are some of them are going, I've had enough?
It would have to be, right? Because I remember, airborne fireworks have always been illegal for as long as I can remember.
In California.
In California.
Connecticut
right?
was the same way.
And, I do remember, like a neighbor or somebody in the neighborhood setting off a big, airborne firework, and within 20 minutes, here comes the police, and it's a big $1,500 fine and blah, 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 right? And so, which really kind of scared everybody else into ever lighting these fireworks off. But with so many being lit off, how do you stop it?
I guess it's kind of like you can't save every dead or, almost dying fish on the beach. You can only save the one that you throw back into the water.
So
Can't get them all, but you can get some of them.
Is that, when you see that video clip and you look across LA, and there was thousands of them going off at once, right?
It's like any given 4th of July in the South.
Is that the California people speaking out saying, hey, we're going to light these off no matter what you say?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what that state becomes, because all the people that could turn the tide have left or are leaving.
I have one word.
What?
Detroit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very true.
If you want my honest opinion of where California is heading, it's heading down the Detroit road.
But I mean, California's got a lot more going for it than Michigan does. I mean, Detroit was driven heavily by the automotive industry, and I think a lot of them, were obviously infiltrated and decimated by unions, and then eventually they started building the cars in Mexico and things like that. So, jobs went away, but again, the political climate did change. Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about this. What do you think drives California?
Oh man, I would imagine a lot of importing, exporting.
Which is your ports,
right?
Right. Where have
Hollywood is moving east?
Where has most of your port business moved to?
I'm going to say the Gulf.
The Gulf, Texas and Florida.
Right.
Right. So a lot of that port business that was going to California has now moved away from there. So what's your next one? Hollywood?
Entertainment, but then again, it's
pretty small fries.
Georgia is becoming a huge hotspot for acting and, the next Hollywood, I guess.
That's right. What about what's the next one?
I would say agriculture.
Okay.
Right.
So now you've got major water issues in California.
Yeah.
Right. So the water that is freely coming off the Sierra Nevadas that's rolling out into the bay is not.
That's robust.
Well, they're not letting the farmers access it. Right. So my uncle, in-law, owns a big farm in California, and so when they took away the delta from him from being able to water his crops, he drilled wells, and they were about $250,000 each.
Oh my God!
And that lasted about 2 or 3 years until California came on and put meters on his pumps and now charge him for the money or for the water that he pumps out of the ground.
And it's basically his water.
It's his water. And he was the one that took the expense to drill this $500,000, $250,000 well on his property to be able to water his crops.
Are you talking to a lot of people that still live out there that want to get out?
Yeah. Oh, every day, every week. Right.
Really?
Yes. I talk to a lot of friends and clients and colleagues, and they're all kind of screaming the same thing.
Yeah. Are they? What is preventing them from moving? It's like everything kind of equalized, right? It's not cheap to move here anymore.
No, but it's your quality of life, right? I mean, what is that worth to you, right? And I think for everybody, it's a little different. Like, what's that final pain point of, you know what, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I think, and everybody has a different pain tolerance.
Well,
right?
it's certainly become very, I guess, not popular, but very, people are a lot more aware of it now here in Middle Tennessee of the influx of Californians have come into the state. But when you moved here, not so much. You can almost say that you were a hipster in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, I remember talking, we were at a open house for a model home, and the sales lady walked up, and we told her, because you're obviously ashamed to be from California, right? So we're like, yeah, we're from California. And she's like, oh, that's great. We love you guys. Come on, come on over. Blah, 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 blah. And I remember telling her, hold on. Mm-hmm. You don't want to welcome every Californian here. Right. Like, it's, better be careful with that statement.
Have you come across any Californians that have moved here that are kind of like, maybe they're not here to keep things the way they are?
I know of one that moved into our neighborhood, and they made it about a year, and they didn't go back to California, but I think they went to Chicago.
Oh, okay.
I think it was.
Well, there you go.
The political climate just wasn't for them.
Well, I mean,
so they wanted to get back to
where their comfort zone was.
Yes.
Yeah. See, even when we moved into our neighborhood here, we've been in that neighborhood now 16, 17 years. And in the beginning, they called our road the New Jersey Turnpike, because a lot of the people that were on the road were from New Jersey. And at first I was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm trying to, people that listen to this and know that I'm talking about them, or if you get upset, I love you. But I was like, I'm trying to get away from these people. I don't want to be near people I grew up with. I know how they are. And it turned out to be wonderful people, great neighbors, always had a good rapport with them. They moved away. And in 2008, all the houses, we all know what happened with the housing crisis that happened. All the rental companies swooped in and bought just hordes of inventory for pennies on the dollar. And all these people that were in desperation to move and sell their houses, sold to them. And so now I'm surrounded by rentals, pretty much. The neighbor next to us tried to be friendly with them. Just doesn't take. You wave to them. Sometimes they'll wave. Sometimes they'll just glare at you. But they're from Michigan. So what do you think?
I mean, for me, like in my neighborhood, they just passed an ordinance, with the HOA that you can no longer rent your houses out. So
Right.
if you were an original homeowner, like us, if we ever wanted to move out, we could rent our house out. But once we sell our house and that new buyer comes along, they can never rent that house out.
Never. Really?
Yeah.
So we actually put an amendment in our bylaws that you can't rent it out for 6 months.
Yep. No, there's never.
Wow.
Right. Because they want to,
Skin in the game. They want people with skin in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're living in the neighborhood.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't want to ever not be told or be told that I couldn't rent my house out, but the 6-month rule is to prevent the companies, the big Wall Street companies, from buying up the houses, which is what was happening, And, as a result, getting them to do anything and change and improve their yards and, do upkeep is like an act of Congress. So the HOA's got to go after them and fine them and all this other stuff. So it's been quite a challenge, but it is what it is. With that being said, let's go ahead and
What's your
what is your problem, Mr. AJ? You can't hear that because you don't have the headphones.
I
on.
heard it.
Yeah,
It was loud enough that I heard it.
it's coming ambiently.
Whew. Man, there's so many these days.
Pick one. What's on top of the mind as of this morning?
I guess I'll go down this road. That's fine.
Yeah.
A customer that doesn't pay their bill on time,
We just talked about this in another episode, actually, recently.
but still demands.
You continue.
Work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've had thankfully I don't have a lot of those, but I've had a couple of those lately, and it's like, you got a past due bill over here, right?
How far past due, typically?
I mean, it's usually the last two that I can remember were well over 30 days.
Yeah.
Starting to get into that 90-day category.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
have relations with collections agencies?
Somebody else recommended that as well.
Yeah.
It's such a small problem for my business. I mean, we're, at least at this point, at this juncture in the game, we've got some really, really, really good clientele. I'm so blessed with the clientele that we've acquired, and we've really only had about two problems, right?
With late payers?
Yeah, with either late payers or just purely being a bad client, right? We've really,
how do you engage them when that happens?
I usually, I mean, it's such a tough thing, right? Because you don't want to essentially stop servicing and be like, I'm never going to service you until you pay your bill. So for us, we're reissuing that invoice, right, when they call and then say, okay, so what's your problem?
So if it's only 1 or 2% or 1 or 2 people.
1 or 2 people. Okay. That's what I'm saying. It's such a small problem.
Here's the way I would have, this is your an opportunity to maybe deepen the relationship. Be like, hey, just going through our invoicing recently and looked at your account. We're kind of pushing 90 days here. Is everything all right with you? Everything okay? Just make sure that, if you're in need of some assistance or anything like that, or some understanding from our end, we just need to have some communication. But just want to make sure everything's okay. What's the one thing that's preventing you from just kind of taking care of this? That's the way I'd approach it, especially if it's only, less than 5 people.
Well, I mean, I can tell you, it's when you get a client that's, in our case, is, you have an initial agreement, right? And then you're working through that agreement. They like what you do, right? They're happy with your service. So they're like, hey, can we also add? Can we add this? Can we add that? Can we add this? And one of the things that we do as a company is we allow the customer to hold on to their last 10% until they are 100% satisfied. And so sometimes I think there's a few people out there, right, that don't realize that we've met our original obligation and what we're actually working on is extra things at this point, right? But they're still thinking about that 10% that they're holding on. Well, you haven't finished this yet. Yeah, but you just added that last week.
Yeah.
Right? That was not a part of the original,
Are you having those conversations when they're adding on? Okay, just so you understand, this is not the original scope of work. So this is going to be above and beyond.
And again, right, I feel like it's not a huge problem at this point with 2 clients.
It's an annoyance.
It's just annoying, right? Yeah. And it's a conversation you don't really want to have.
No.
Even are you okay? It's just we know you're satisfied with what you've got. You've expressed that.
Here's a perfect time to show your Tennessee. Reach out. Hey man, you all right out there? You guys need a hand? We know, well, you didn't finish this. Yeah, but you remember when I told you?
You just messed that up, by the way.
Did I?
Yeah.
How did I mess it up?
You said you guys.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to be canceled now. What if it's not guys, Jim?
Y'all all right?
I know.
Y'all all right over there?
Y'all all right? But that's, kind of deep in the relationship. And even if you did an add-on to the scope of work, it's an add-on. And that has to be, I guess, explained at the time that they want to add it on. Okay, just so you understand, the original scope of work was for this. So we can go ahead and add this on. Can we go ahead and also satisfy that 10% that we have kind of hanging out there because the original scope of work is finished? Would you agree?
Right. And, and that... Again, I think it's just certain people, not a lot of them, just a couple that are holding on to that as a security blanket, right?
But at least you've had the conversation.
Yeah.
And it's almost like talking to a kid. Okay, so you do understand if I have to have another phone call with you, I may have to kind of, send this to collections because we're going to be pushing 120 days at that point. I don't want to do that, and I'm sure you don't want to do that as well. Does that make sense? Late fees.
Late fees.
Yeah.
Right. I think that the late, when you start talking late fees, people start perking up quite a bit.
Right.
It's
especially when they're an annoying late fee. Yeah. Like $35 is affordable, but it's so annoying when you miss a credit card payment just by accident. They hit you with a $35 or an overdraft fee from a bank. Not that I've had experience with that lately, but it's, I think everybody's been hit with one of those, and it's like, you got to call the bank, and guys, come on, just remove the fee. I get it. You crack the whip. I understand. It won't happen again. Completely got it. Right?
Yeah. And that's what I think. I think it's, maybe, we talked about it, late fees, right? Because even on our credit cards, right, we get charged a fee to run credit cards. So we, obviously charge to run credit cards. And I get so many people that, it's, in some cases, it's a minimal fee, right? But in other cases, if you got a $50,000 job or $100,000 job and you're trying to put that on there, it's a big fee, right?
We had that in the car business.
And most people are very quick to find an alternative form of payment.
Yeah. And typically it's on their terms. They want to do 45-day terms or 90-day terms. And everything on my invoice says, net 15, and I have a late fee notice on the bottom, and typically I don't really have to fight with too many people. I had one guy that went, I don't know, 6-7 months without paying me the entire bill, and I had sent him everything he wanted. It was one of those things where in my business you kind of try things on and they're subjective. So, hey, here's how the recording sounds. Here's a couple of versions of it. What do you think? And after agreeing with moving forward, this is what I sent to him, and he comes back. It doesn't even really come back with anything. He just goes radio silent. So I have no idea if he's using these pieces, in practical applications, and he just complete crickets. And I would hit him up every month. Hey, here's the invoice. Finally, just get to the point. I'm like, dude, you're not getting back to me. So, okay. I just blew him up. I think I hit him with the invoice 4 days in a row. I started adding late fees to it, and he paid it.
But I just thought of this because this is what I should have talked about, because I'll tell you, this is what really is my problem right now.
Right.
Is people asking for quotes. Mm-hmm. Right. And they, I need this quote. I need this quote. I need it tomorrow. Yeah. Right. Or, whatever. And so you turn around a quote, and quotes are not, it doesn't take me 10 minutes to do a quote. It takes a couple hours most of the time. Right. Because you're putting parts and pieces together, different things. And you send them that quote, and then they totally just disappear.
Right. Need it right now.
Need it, have to have it. Can you get it to me? Uh-huh. Right. So you flip it around to them, you get it over to them, and they just completely disappear.
Yeah, that's part of it. You just got to deal with those. And it's one of those things, well, I guess he wasn't really our customer.
Yeah, but then it almost makes you think, right? Should we charge?
Not if your competition's not doing it.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's just one of those things that's it's a loss leader, not even a loss leader, but it's one of those just realities you have to deal with.
What do you think I guess for me, it's the on the customer side, right? Like if I asked somebody for a quote, like if I called you and said, "Hey Jim, I want to do a podcast and I want to implement this, right?" And it took a bunch of your time to put that together for me. And okay, AJ, here's your perfect package.
Yeah.
Right. And then I just I understand and appreciate that time that you put in to build that for me. If there was a reason why I couldn't go forward with it tomorrow, right, I would be having these open conversations. Hey Jim, I love your quote. I love what you're doing, but I can't do it now because of this.
Well, at least at that point. You're talking about people completely ghosting you.
And as a business person, right now, if you start hearing that same, I can't do this today because of this, right now, what you can work on in your business. And those are some of the things, especially when I do a free quote, that I'm relying upon. Hey, if I am too expensive, okay, I get it, but I want to hear that.
Well, I think automatically when somebody asks you, well, hey, I need it tomorrow, especially after what you told me, it tells me that they're shopping. So, okay, just out of curiosity, you trying to get it by a deadline, and are we being priced against any other companies here in the area? Oh yeah, okay. I just wanted to know that, and then maybe just kind of make it a little bit more competitive at that point, and maybe put a carrot in there with some sort of hey, if you decide to move forward with it in the next 10 days. Let's go ahead and knock another 5% off or something like that.
Yeah, but so this is something that had come up, recently, and you'll understand this because you work for Mercedes,
right? Well, the car business in general.
But when you go to a Mercedes dealership to buy a Mercedes, what's your expectation? What are you looking at when you're going to buy that car?
In that situation, probably customer experience. They expect to be treated a certain way. They know they're buying a premium brand, but you'd still sometimes go through the rigmarole, for a couple of hours with the customer, and they have to go home and think about it, despite your best efforts to overcome that objection. But sometimes they just leave, right?
But I'm sure Mercedes-Benz understands that they're selling a Mercedes-Benz and not a Kia.
Oh, right? Yeah, but you're still up against BMW, Lexus, and all those guys,
Right. But you're not going to take your Mercedes-Benz and turn it into a Kia just so you can compete with the Kia dealership down the road.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. At this point, if you got somebody that says, I need it tomorrow, can you come back and say, well, are we being, are you looking for the best price? Is that kind of, what is it that you're looking for? Because, right now I could tell you Matson Alarm, our core values are this. We're all about quality, making sure you got the right things. It's not going to be the least expensive product out there. So with that being said, what kind of budget are you trying to be around? Maybe expand. So setting those expectations in that conversation, once they raise that flag, hey, I need it tomorrow. Well, before I invest all my time, hours of time in putting this quality proposal together for you, let me ask you a couple questions first.
Good, fast, and cheap. You can only pick one.
Right. And that's kind of what it comes down to. So are you looking to be price competitive? Because we typically, the reason why we're priced this way is because of A, B, and C. What is it that you're looking to do? And, what is the budget you're trying to stay in? Let me see if I can help you and work with you before we both waste our time. That's the last thing I want to do. The last thing you want to do. Does that make sense? Well, yeah. Okay. So what is it you're looking for? What is it your budget? Is that something you've tried?
Yeah. So budget is something that I've worked on for probably 10 or 15 years now. Right. Because, especially in the home automation business, right?
That's a big business.
We get people that, are building a new house or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, we want a new TV in our living room. We want a game room TV. We want, they'll go through 15 TVs. Yeah. Right. Well, then I come back with a bid that's, $30,000. Right. And the customer completely freaks out.
Yeah. Sticker shock.
Oh my gosh, 30 grand. Dude, you bought 15 $2,000 TVs. What did you think your bill was going to be?
Right. How often does that happen?
A lot.
Really?
A lot.
So there's something broken in the initial conversations then.
No, I think it's the Amazon mentality of,
right.
And not putting together the fact of, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's a $2,000 TV, but not really understanding that I just bought 15 of them, or I asked you to quote 15 of them.
Yeah.
Right. And, thinking in my head that it's going to be 20,000
right,
or 15,000, right?
For the kind of TVs that they're getting, that they think, they can get the same product for a better bang for the buck.
Right.
But at the same time, it's even when we started selling lighting several years ago, I can buy this whole system at Costco. Well, you absolutely can. You can go to Alibaba, you can go to Amazon and find all these lights. But I'll tell you one thing, Costco's not using those lights in their stores.
What I've started, actually, I just implemented this like a week or two ago when we're talking about budget, because I think this is a great way that people can understand it. And I've tried 100 different ways. And I think this one might be the one that sticks.
Right.
Is think of it as a destination vacation.
Right.
Right. When you go to Malibu, right, or Hawaii, are you flying first class? Are you staying at the Ritz-Carlton, or are you staying at the Motel 6?
Right. Depends on your value.
Are you renting the SUV, or are you renting the economy car?
Right.
Right. Because that essentially, when putting together a big AV system, these are all the things that we have to put together.
Right.
Right. Do you want the latest and greatest OLED in your living room, or do you want something that's very similar that you can go down and get for Costco for $600?
Right.
Right. Is that important to you? Right. Some people, I don't care to fly coach, but I got to stay at the Ritz.
Those are the hot buttons you got to find out.
I only fly first class, but I'll stay at Motel 6.
Right. But I mean, especially when you're not necessarily a security system because it's kind of sight unseen. They just want to make sure it's
I mean, security is a little bit different. You know, I mean, there are certain things that you just can't shy away from, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to secure your home, obviously you've got to sensor every door in the house.
Right.
There's really no way around that, right?
But for something like an AV system, they're not known to be inexpensive.
Yeah. No.
Especially if you're putting, audio systems out in your backyard, they got to be a certain kind of speaker that's weatherproof. You know, we with our business with the colored lighting, I can get this on Amazon. You certainly can, absolutely. But it's not our product. Well, what do you mean? Our product has been designed by us to be harsh environment proof, if you will. They're made for car washes. They have to put up with chemicals and water and all sorts of things that are pouring over them or being misted on. So they have to last, and they have to have a warranty that backs up what you're buying. So that's why they're priced like this. And we're actually, as far as our competition's concerned, we're a lot more aggressively priced than anybody out there. Oh, you are? Yeah. And typically for a car wash owner, it come down. We just stumbled across this strategy recently. On the average, a car wash is being built from anywhere from $3 to $6 million. That's about the going price. Our packages are literally just give me 1%, even less of the cost it is to build this thing, and we'll get you a rockin' light show. And that's it.
Which is
That's
a
crazy.
different user experience.
Totally. And it's all about, ROI and everything. But what's the ROI of an AV system inside of a home? What do you want it to do? What do you want it to be, you to be proud of? How do you want to show your friends that you spared no expense? But the good news is, even kind of positioning yourself of, look, I'm not even the most expensive guy out there.
Yeah.
But before we move any further, let's get an understanding of what your expectation is so I don't have to peel you off the ceiling when it comes time. Because how much they might, I don't know what my budget is. Okay, then pivot to bracketing. Guy, in this your size house, looking at basically what we've done in the past, we've done them for as little as this or as much as this. We're probably going to land somewhere in there. Is that okay with you? Now, they're going to probably think leaning more towards the low end, but hey, remember when I said we're probably going to land somewhere in here depending on what you need. Well, it's 35,000. Okay, well, what do we need to remove?
Yeah.
Even if they do ghost you, that's one of the things that, I said, I'm just afraid of something that I give you a quote.
But see, that's the portion that I don't understand, right? Is, okay, so maybe it was more expensive than you thought.
Right.
Right? Maybe it was a whole lot more expensive than you thought. How hard is it just to say, hey, this was a whole lot more expensive than I thought?
Because you're dealing with people that just don't care about civility. Here we are coming back around to that topic. And that's just something that you got to expect with people. They're just dirt sometimes, and they're going to use you. And you could probably tell, I would imagine at this point in the game of you doing this, who's going to do that to you.
Yeah, it's becoming more, it's, that's one of the things of being a business owner, right? That as a tech, I didn't really have to pay attention too much, but now it's you can almost peg them pretty quick.
Oh yeah, yeah. In the car business, because we got in front of so many people a day, you'd start identifying the characteristics, the traits, little nuances and cues that they would exhibit, whether or not they were going to buy. My business partner, he says, Anna. He was trading in her car to get a new car. And he says, she went out and detailed it. And I said, that's the worst thing you can do. He goes, why? Because that's a clear signal to the salesman that you're buying today. I said, and whenever I came across a clean car, well, here's the thing. If it was like moderately used, okay, this could go one of two ways. If it was clean, like they're ready to go, oh, this is going to be a sale. We just got to make sure we land them on the right car. Or if it was completely dirty, water bottles piled up in the passenger seat, crap in the trunk. Oh yeah, they just want to get rid of this thing because they just want to dump it and have us deal with all the garbage and the mess. So you'd start. The way people would park in the parking lot, they're going to buy. It was crazy,
like
dude.
Sideways.
Just whereabouts at the building. If they parked by the corner, if they parked in certain, on this side of the building, and they parked way across the you can just tell.
What was the rationing behind that?
It's just over time, those little cues,
Yeah, but if you parked farther away, what did that mean?
Well, I mean, it's essentially, I just want to be left alone. I'm just here to look. I'm going to kick tires. This is something I like to do. I just want to do this. I don't want to be bothered. If you were closer to the building, then you got attention. Now I do want to be helped. So those are the two general cues. The corner, typically, if there was a space open, it was, I want to say psychologically, like a spot of privilege. So, hey, I'm here to buy, so therefore I'm going to take the best spot. Interesting. Yeah, really interesting the way people just subconsciously behave.
So what you're telling me is I need to put a parking lot. I need to have my customers park.
You have to need your own virtual parking lot when it comes to presenting to them. But is this happening a lot over the phone that you're having these conversations?
No, I mean, this has been a problem for my whole career. Right. I mean, I would probably say on average in my AV systems would easily average about $35,000 to $40,000. Right. And the thing is when most people are thinking about their AV in their house, whether it's speakers or TVs or a media room or any of that stuff, they're conditioned to think, I can do this for $4,000 or $5,000.
Right. That's where mine was. I was thinking probably with you, but more like 10 or 15.
Yeah.
But you're talking about running all the wire and all that stuff. But it always comes with extra toys. Yeah.
Right. So, you're doing your media room, right? So you want some good speakers. You want a remote that controls everything, right? Well, now you got the remote that controls everything. So why not hook the lights up?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, well, the lights are hooked up, so why not hook the thermostat up? Right. I want to be able to sit in my media room and turn the AC down. I want to turn the lights off. Right. Well, because we did that, let's just do the lights on the hallway.
So they don't realize what they're adding on.
And it just, and you don't. Adds up. It adds up, and it adds up quick. And
maybe that's part of your sales presentation. Then you talk about that. A lot of people start out with this, so you're at this certain price point, but as you realize how much more the system can do.
But see, I just had this scenario. In one of the last houses that I did.
You provide financing by chance?
We do on our alarm systems. Not necessarily on the home automation side of things, because there's so many options for financing. I mean, if you need financing, we'd help figure that out for you. But we, had a client that was who I had warned him. I said, hey, this is how this thing goes. A lot of times people add on. Well, yeah, we'll never add on. We're not going to add on.
Well, I mean, what if you were to say, okay, with that being said, what if I were to just give you everything in the proposal, which means it's going to be generally expensive, and we can peel away the things you don't think you need? Which
we did.
Right, okay.
Right, so I gave them the full, because that's the way I always do, because I want people I want people to see, okay, if I did it all, if I did everything, right, this is about what it's going to cost me. Even if they're not interested in everything, right, I want to show them everything. And I had a guy that I showed everything. We peeled back. Nope, not going to change it. This is the way that it's going to be. And we're not even to our install portion yet. And he has added motorized shades, which he was never going to do. Right. He's added lighting control in many more areas than he originally wanted.
When they're doing changes like that, do you have change order forms?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
With the amount, hey, you're signing off on this.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So they understand as they're going along.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, but it's amazing to me how some people think, I would never add lights to my office. Right. And then they start thinking about it or using it in different areas and go, yeah, you know what? I actually do want controlled lighting in my office. How quickly that stuff kind of changes.
I always tell people, look, we can go meet your budget with the lighting and stuff like that in a car wash or car dealership or wherever. Well, how many? Typically on a tunnel this size, it's going to be 16 to 18 lights. or maybe even 14. We could probably do 14 if that makes sense for you, but you're looking at a $2,500 savings at that point. Good news is you can always add on if you want. So let's just at least get the conversation started. Maybe next year when you got some more CapEx, you can go ahead and just plunk down and we add 2 or 3 or 4 more lights or whatever. So I don't know. That's the way we do it. So with that being said, man, good conversation.
Yeah.
As always.
Thanks for having me.
Check him out, AJ Russell with Matson Alarm of Tennessee. All your information is going to be in the description of the podcast. And of course, check us out at what'syourproblempodcast.com. Always going for, I forgot to mention at the front of the show, that 10,000 average downloads is our big, hairy, audacious goal for 2023. So share, like, subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff right from what'syourproblempodcast.com. AJ, always a pleasure, and it's always been wonderful to talk to you, my friend.
And it's good to sit next to you every week.
That's right. We're part of the AV team. Go figure.